Hi, everyone. I have Laura Burford, mortgage manager at American National Bank. And Laura is a veteran of mortgage banking over 22 years, and she's handled processors throughout her career. Laura, I have to ask you, with your long career, you certainly have seen that role of the processor changing from 100% administration to now where they're actually speaking to the customer many times more than the loan officers. So, how's this changed the type of skills that the processor needs to have?
That's a really good question, Pat. You're right. I think historically we thought of processors as very back office, operationally minded, very detail oriented. I think they tended to be a little bit more introverted, but over time, we have come to rely on them to talk a lot more with the customers and communicate, if not verbally, then definitely through email communications, which is its own skill set in itself. So, the loan officers are out selling, they're trying to attract business. And once they hand that file over, I think they do really appreciate the support of a processor, dealing with some of the follow-up items and the collection of paperwork and things like that from customers. So it takes a different approach and a little bit of a different style. I think loan officers are looking for both of best worlds in their processors today.
Well, that raises a great question and you've seen many, many processors. So, what really separates the top processors from others when it comes, especially to communication skills?
hmm I think proactiveness, not just taking a file and following a checklist and passing it on, but being able to identify, really this is where the blend of skills comes in. So you get the file and you might notice that the date isn't quite correct on that binder, or the good through date on that pay stub isn't quite as long as it needs to be. You needed a full 2 weeks of income, or you needed, it's the detail orientation, but then the proactive step of, I'm going to go ahead and follow up with the borrower and thank them for the documentation they've provided and let them know, there's no problem here. I just need this one additional item. If you could send that, I need it by tomorrow. So I think not hassling the loan officer, making them aware that, hey, I'm going to be following up with the customer, but just notice that you're going to need something and then problem solve that. Reach out and get it. The loan officer would prefer that, they only need to be really aware if something drastically difficult is going to be communicated, and they may want to do that. But the normal stuff of just the documentation and, again, refining the file to make it really solid for the underwriter, a processor that can see those issues and then proactively address them and know what they need to get, they're like gold to a loan officer.
Well, that's for sure. And when you look at the difficult customers, a lot of times what I see with processors is that when they get someone that's difficult for whatever reason, they really don't seem to be able to handle them. And that does circle back to
Mhm.
communication skills.
Yeah, it definitely does. You want to make sure that you're talking with the loan officer. Processor loan officer relationships, the stronger those are and the better you can communicate with each other, the better impact it will ultimately have on your customers. So yeah, if there is a difficult situation, you've got to talk, and sometimes the loan officer will want to handle that, and I think many times it's called for. But it doesn't mean that the processor may not get the phone call. What if the borrower calls you and they're upset about something? How to handle that. I think the best way to think of it is, if you were the person that was upset and you called in to your financial institution looking for an answer, what do you want to hear? You don't want to hear, oh, I'll have to talk to someone, or, oh, let me call someone. What you want to hear is that they're going to get it solved. I'm going to take care of it. So I think, again, when there's a difficult situation and there's maybe a conversation that needs to be had, the loan officer might be the one that wants to deliver that. But you flip that around, you get an upset customer calling the processor, their response to that situation is going to matter. how do you handle the difficult borrower? What do you say to them? Is it finding a resolution? Empathy. I appreciate how you're upset, and we're going to fix it. We've got some options. Let me talk with the loan officer, and we're going to get back to you before the end of the day. That'd be a great answer. You don't have to know everything as a processor. You're not going to be able to solve all those situations without the help from the loan officer, but you can certainly give the feeling and the impression to the customer that you care about what they're saying, you hear the problem, and you're working to find a resolution, and then tell them when you're going to do that by. That's what they really want. They just want to know somebody's going to address it.
Well, I'll tell you, Laura, that's really great points. And I guess my last question for today is what's kind of your forecast for the future of this important role that's now expected to be an excellent communicator in addition to being proactive on the administrative side? How do you see this all playing out?
I think really good processors that can manage both sides of that role are just in very high demand, very high demand. It is a unique skill set, and of course, with a number of variables in our industry and the constant changes, it takes a certain person to be willing to learn and grow and adapt, and again have that skill set to deal with people, but also detail oriented enough. And loan officers, that's the exact type of person they're looking for. And I think that they're willing to pay well. Companies are willing to pay well for those positions. And it's just so important, that customer service piece, and being willing to take the phone calls, being willing to send the emails, and really support the loan officer. That is what we're looking for today. But again, not to say that you don't need the operational skill set, because that's ultimately very important as well.
Laura, all great points. Thanks for sharing them today. They were really wonderful.
You bet. Thank you for having me.